Nothing I'd understood or expected from life previously was true anymore. No one would verify the persistent dialogue I seemed to be having with another world, an outside world. Some days the voice promised so much and I clung to it. Some days it just mirrored my own thoughts, connecting but providing no judgment. And some days it was like a parent scolding me. It didn't feel like the God I'd known, but I couldn't be sure. After a while, a young woman turned up at the front door looking for somewhere to live. She said she'd heard through a friend that a room was available. I was very reluctant about renting the room again, had become extremely wary of anyone new. But when she arrived to look around, she was warm, friendly and full of smiles. It seemed a reasonable fit to let her stay. A week or so later, after she'd moved her bags and belongings into the spare room, we went out together to buy food for the house. When we arrived back, the kitchen window was broken and the back door had been opened from the window. She noticed her bags had been opened and searched. Her umbrella was gone, nothing else, and nothing else in the house appeared to be missing or disturbed. Maybe it was some homeless person, she said, not overly concerned, but I wasn't so sure. I insisted that we each take a bill in our own name. I rented the washing machine and she took the phone account. After a long phone conversation, she came into the kitchen jubilant. I just had $300 debt from my last phone bill erased, she said. I managed to sweet-talk the guy into making it disappear. Her eyes twinkled. I wasn't sure what to make of her. Would have preferred to have kept my distance. Had become extremely cautious and wary of anyone new. I'd managed to get unpaid work at a commercial photography studio in the afternoons and began working on my own portfolio after hours. I lined up a photography shoot and wanted to exhibit before the next semester at university began, but I still needed a job to pay the rent. I am taking photographs with my camera, pictures of my life. I was sure I'd captured some great moments on film, but when I went to take out the film I found that it hadn't gone through. I knew then that I'd lost my history. I saw a small 3-lined notice in the classified section of the local newspaper advertising for a photographer. I called the mobile number to arrange a meeting. I met with a man in his 40s at a local cafe. He asked me to go around the city and take photographs of all the buildings and towers I could find. He was very specific that the angle of the photographs be from other buildings up high, a level viewpoint. I must try and get to the roof of the nearby buildings, he said. We agreed to meet in a week and he offered to pay me $200 cash and the cost of developing the films for my trouble. That week, while taking photographs in the city, I found it much harder than I'd expected to get to the top floor of the tallest buildings. There was no artistic endeavour in taking the shots from a direct angle anyway, I decided, and preferred framing the sweeping lines of towers from the ground. When we met again the following week, he was not happy with the photos. He said he did not want a vantage from the ground. He paid me and kept the negatives, and I was happy for the money. Walking home that night, I wandered through a deserted shopping mall, looking inside the closed shop windows. I could hear the sound of a familiar song coming from the only shop with lights on. When I reached the window, I saw a painter inside. He stood frozen, looking at me through the glass in his painting clothes. It seemed strange that he'd stared for so long, and I stared back at him as I kept walking. Later, while riding home on the bus, it occurred to me that it might have been Ken. I agonized again over the possibility, thinking some spell must be keeping my eyes from seeing him beyond his disguise. A few days later, I went back into the shop where I'd seen the painter and asked the lady serving if she knew anything about them. Oh, one of them looked like an old friend of mine, and I wanted to get in touch with him again, I lied. Oh, yes, I have their number here, said the lady. She rattled around in the top drawer of the counter. Then someone came to the shop. She closed the drawer and walked over to the lady who needed serving. If you come back later, I'll see if I can find it for you, she said, but I never did.